I transmigrated into the doomed side villain. The hero turns into a human pig, with 3 months to live, and the protagonist already in bed with my bride. So there I was, squatting alone by the moon gate at my own wedding, like a man who wandered in off the street, listening to a hall full of ministers toast my happiness, while the groom's bride was upstairs in the bridal chamber, getting very thoroughly acquainted with another man. That man was the protagonist, and I just realized I was the villain he practices on. Let me back up, because 2 lifetimes had just slammed together in my skull, and only one of them ended well. In the good one, I was an ordinary modern grad, top of my class, name of Wei Jiang. In the other, the one I'd woken up inside of tonight, I was also Wei Jiang, and I'd transmigrated straight into a web novel called The Empress is Also My Caged Bird, and landed, on page 1, in the single worst seat in the house, the wedding of the story's disposable side villain. Me. Grandson and sole heir of Wei Jiang, Regent Prince, Grand Marshal of the Armed Forces, Left Chancellor, Pillar of the State, the actual war god who held the great Chan dynasty together with his bare hands. Impressive family. Shame about the heir. Because the original Wei Jiang was a lazy, gambling, whoring waste of a man whose one accomplishment was being so obsessed with a girl named Xiao Lia that he begged his war god grandfather to raise up her whole clan just to marry her. Which happened. Today. And on the wedding night, the protagonist, Chen Tianhai, freshly minted top scholar, the Empress's shiny new favorite, riding a plot armor so thick it bends physics, strolled into my mansion to steal my bride. And she went with him. Willingly. But here's the part that turned my stomach to ice. I knew how the book ends, because I'd read it. In 3 months, the northern state of Chu invades. My grandfather is defeated and killed in battle, and the moment the war god is cold, the whole court, Empress included, falls on the Lin family like wolves. Estate confiscated, entire clan exterminated. And me? A traitor inside my own house hands me to Chen Tianhai, who turns me into a human pig, limbs off, tongue out, and leaves me on the bank of the Yellow River as a party favor. Meanwhile, Xiao Lia, the wife who spied on my family for the enemy, doesn't die at all. She gets kept. Chen Tianhai's caged bird, her father promoted, everyone I love in a mass grave, and the 2 people who dug it get a happy ending in a nice apartment. Oh, and the cherry on top of the original Wei Jiang's idiocy? For 3 months of marriage, he never once touched Xiao Lia, out of respect for the beauty. So Chen Tianhai got her, for free, still gift-wrapped. That poor dead fool. 3 months to live, a war god grandfather sleepwalking toward a battlefield grave, a clan with a death sentence nobody's read yet but me. Marriage? I couldn't have cared less about the marriage. I looked up at the night sky and did the only math that mattered. I had a plot to derail, a protagonist to strip of his halo, and a very narrow window before this story ate my whole family. Since that's how it is, I said, brushing off my wedding robes. Don't blame me. Step 1 wrote itself. Right now, this very minute, the great Chen Tianhai was up in my bridal chamber with my bride in his arms. Catch him there, in front of the right audience, and his shining reputation shatters on the floor. And a reputation, in a court like this, is the only armor a man without an army actually has. I stood up, grinning like an owl, and then had a better thought. Why enjoy a scene this magnificent alone? You invite friends. As for my dignity, I'd taken that off and stuffed it down my own trousers back when I decided to survive this book. I grabbed a wine jar and walked back into the banquet. The courtyard was still roaring. Inside the main hall, the old lions, my grandfather and the court's most powerful ministers. Outside, the cub pen, the sons of every noble house in the capital, a pack of pedigreed dandies drinking and playing finger games and generally being the most useless collection of silk in the dynasty. My kind of people. I picked the rowdiest table, threw an arm around it, and shouted, "Brothers! The groom lives! We thought you'd already bolted for the wedding bed. One more night's nothing. My big brother here was married at 9. Tomorrow we take you to Yunlai Tower. We're finally bringing down that proprietress. 4 of us couldn't manage her last time." "A madam? No trouble at all," I waved, then dropped my voice to the confiding hiss of a man with a secret. "But I've got something even more fun tonight, brothers. Want in?" "If Brother Wei says it's fun, it's the best fun there is." I laughed low enough to raise the hair on their necks. "Let's go make a ruckus in the bridal chamber." Wait, the groom leads his own wedding night pranks? That's against every rule of... rules. You know what rules are? Brother Wei says we prank the bridal chamber, so we prank the bridal chamber. Move! And a dozen drunk aristocrats put down their golden cups and stampeded for the back courtyard. But first I caught one wrist, because this next part needed muscle. Chunky Li Gang, son of General Li, 2 meters of man and 300 pounds of it, deceptively terrifying in a fight, and loyal to my family down to the marrow, because his father grew up as my grandfather's sworn brother. Big brother, what is it? Chunky, you hang back. 1 incense stick from now, you bring all the guests, the old men too, up to the bridal chamber. Tell them your sister-in-law and I cooked up a surprise for everyone. Got it. I'll go fetch Grandpa Wei right now. And send someone to find out exactly where His Majesty is. Yes, big brother. I watched the party glitter and felt the whole plot bend under my hand. Your protagonist halo ends tonight, Chen Tianhai. I'm going to take your luck, your fortune, your future, and everything the author handed you for free, and build my own throne out of it. Then I led a dozen giggling drunks toward the bedroom where the hero of the story was about to have the worst night of his fictional life. Because up in that chamber, Chen Tianhai was doing what protagonists do, being magnificent at my expense. Shalia, veil lifted, weeping decoratively, was doing the wounded fairy routine. Why are you here? I'm already Wei Jiang's wife. What will happen to my poor family? And Chen Tianhai, chin up, radiating that discount CEO menace, told her not to worry her pretty head. The Empress had handed him the power to audit every official in the realm, and if the war god so much as grumbled, he'd expose the old man's embezzled military funds, and the whole Lin clan would burn. Come with me, Yar. And she, of course she, melted and let him pull her in, and breathed a little, of surrender, right as the door came off its hinges. Bang! Wife, I'm home. Brothers, let's liven up the wedding night. Charge! I am drinking with my sister-in-law tonight. A dozen drunk noble sons poured into the room and found the bride locked in the arms of the Empress's golden boy. Shalia shrieked and dove behind Chen Tianhai. The dandies froze mid-cheer. Sister-in-law? Eh? Chen Tianhai, what are you doing here? And I came shoving through the middle of them, took one look at the man shielding my bride, cried out, Leah! In a voice cracking with heartbreak, and rolled my eyes back and fainted dead away into the arms of 3 startled drunks. I'll be honest, my acting was better than any of theirs. There's a reason the original was the villain and Chen Tianhai was the lead, but tonight, in this one scene, I was going to outperform the protagonist on his own stage. The room detonated on my behalf. Brother Wei! Your Highness! Someone fetch a doctor! And then the knives came out, exactly as I'd bet they would. Chen Tianhai, what are you doing here? Are you having an affair with the Lin heir's wife? You dog! His Majesty showers you with favor, and this is how you repay it? Trash like you doesn't deserve to stand with us. Even Chen Tianhai's own hangers-on rounded on him, glaring. Because a room full of drunk nobles will forgive a man almost anything except making them look like fools at a wedding they were enjoying. Chen Tianhai, who'd walked in expecting to be the hero of a love story, stood there watching his reputation come apart in real time, and I could see the exact thought crossing his face behind the panic. This is wrong. They should all be downstairs drinking. Wedding pranks start after midnight. Who burst in this early? Did Wei Jiang plan this? No, impossible. That man is a drunk who knows how to gamble and whore and nothing else. He doesn't have the brains. That's right, hero. Keep thinking that. It's the most useful thing about you. He gathered himself and tried the reasonable man gambit. Brothers, this is all a misunderstanding. I came to congratulate Wei Jiang. I was led here by mistake. I was only explaining to sister-in-law when you rushed in. Weak. And I'd already salted the ground. On cue, I peeled myself up off the floor, eyes gone red with theatrical bloodlust, leveled a finger at him and roared, Chen Tianhai, you broke into my bridal chamber in the dead of night and defiled my wife. I'll beat you to death. And swung the wine jar at his skull, slow and drunk and staggering, so the boys could heroically hold me back. Brother Wei, don't! Let the prince judge this. If you kill him, you'll be in the wrong even though you're right. Let me go, I'll kill this adulterer. And through the open door, the temperature dropped, and the crowd parted like a curtain, because the war god had arrived. My grandfather, Wei Xuanyang. Regent Prince, and the only man in the dynasty the Empress herself thinks twice about, walking in at the head of every heavyweight in the imperial court. Right behind him, the numbered Ziyun, who'd come tonight to watch the Lin family embarrass itself, and had, instead, just walked his own son straight into the worst trap of his life. Finally, grandfather, I thought, staggering and screaming with a wine jar over my head. Another minute, and I really would have cracked this protagonist's skull open. And then, where would the fun be? What followed was a masterclass in watching powerful men squirm, and I want you to see every twist of it, because in a court like this, the verbal knife fight is the battle. Stop! What is going on here? No fooling around on my grandson's wedding day? The war god swept in and the crowd peeled apart, and I stood at the end of that path with a wine jar over my head, drunk screaming at Chen Tianhai, thinking, finally, grandfather, one more second and I really do crack this protagonist's skull. Then Wei Xuanyang's eyes found the strange sight by the bed, an unwelcome man standing in front of the marriage bed, a bride in bright red crushed behind him, and the war god's whole face changed into something worse than rage, into a slow, delighted, freezing smile. Oh? It would seem my nephew Gu and my granddaughter-in-law are quite close. And Chen Ziyun felt that ambiguous smile go down his own spine like ice water, because he'd come here to watch the Lin family humiliate itself, and had somehow ended up with his own son standing in the wreckage. Bei Chen, what are you doing here? Chen Ziyun demanded, stepping forward, and I set down my wine jar with a face full of theatrical anguish, and named the crime, but not the criminal. Grandfather! Chen Tianhai used the drinking to sneak into the bridal chamber and insult my wife. I deliberately left Xiaolia's name out of it because I wanted her to come out and hang herself on her own. It kept me the deceived, blameless husband, and it let the whole room's disgust build with nowhere to land. Chen Tianhai, how dare you! The war god thundered, eyes spitting fire, and behind him, the three dukes, the ministers, every heavyweight in the dynasty went dark-faced, because there is no clan on earth that swallows this. Chancellor Chen, you've raised a fine son. Barely last week he stood in open court and called my grandson a scoundrel. Well, even a scoundrel doesn't covet another man's wife, especially on the wedding night. Ziyun, I believe you owe me an explanation. Chen Ziyun's face burned. I came to watch the show, and I'm the show. You beast, he roared at his son. Get over here. And Chen Tianhai, prodigy, the pride of the Gu family, came over on trembling legs like a scolded child. Father. Then the protagonist tried to think his way out, and I watched him step into the pit. I was tricked into coming here, he said. I stumbled into Brother Wei's chamber by accident. I was only explaining to sister-in-law when you all came in. A neat lie. But his own father, needing to throw mud somewhere, gave him the shovel. This is the Lin residence. Who would trick you? The young master, perhaps? Meaning, blame Wei Jiang, save face. And Chen Tianhai grabbed it. Yes, it was Brother Wei. He sent someone to lead me here, then brought people over. He arranged all of it. Which is when my people earned their invitations. Chunky Lee shoved out of the crowd. Horse shit. My big brother was at the banquet all night. How could he lead you anywhere? And the playboys I'd brought piled on, right on cue. Brother Wei's got no reason to plot against you. And when we walked in, we all saw you and your sister-in-law hugging. You're an adulterous pair. What's there to deny? The protagonist stood there with the whole room's testimony against him, and no answer that didn't dig deeper. And then Xiaolia delivered the divine assist I could never have written myself. She ran out and threw herself down before the war god. Grandfather, please calm down. This was something we did willingly. Forgive Bei Chen. Punish me. Chen Ziyun, Chen Tianhai, and her own father, Xiao Fuming, shouted, "Shut up!" in perfect unison, and I nearly applauded, because I'd known she'd speak up for the man she loved, but I never dreamed she'd confess the whole affair unprompted in front of every power in the dynasty. Sealed. Beyond any lie. And it cost Chen Ziyun his composure. For the first time in 26 years, he slapped his own son across the face. Crack! Hard enough to grind the prodigy's teeth to powder, in front of everyone. And it cost Xiaolia's father worse. His whole clever alliance with the Gu family had just detonated in public, with his own daughter holding the fuse. And Xiao Fuming came up out of his chair, goatee trembling, and pointed at her. Xiaolia, you've thrown away chastity and shame and ruined my family's name. I'll beat you to death today, you unfilial girl." And here's where I stopped being the victim and became the puppeteer, because I could not resist twisting every one of them a little tighter. I stepped between them with tears in my eyes, all sincerity. "Uncle Shao, please, calm yourself. Leah is my wife. He made a mistake, and I share the guilt. But for the sake of our two families' happy union, punish only Chen Tianhai." Chen Tianhai's eyes at me said, "You sly, sly devil." And the watching bigwigs bought the devotion whole. The young master is truly loyal and righteous, a man of real feeling. So Chen Tianhai, cornered and disgraced, spat his threat. "Wei Jiang, you're very good. I'll remember this. We'll meet again." And walked straight into the war god, who took one step forward and let the pressure of a man who'd earned his rank on real battlefields fall over the whole room. "What? You've insulted my family's name and threatened my heir. Chen Tianhai, do you think I'm dead?" Chen Ziyun knew a losing fight when he was in one and moved to end it. "Shut up! Kneel!" And his son recoiled in disbelief. "Father, you want me to kneel to the Lin family?" "If you don't kneel, never call yourself my son again." And the prodigy, forced, face contorted, finally went down on his knees facing my grandfather. And at that exact instant, the payoff, the war god turned his back on him. "I have lived an upright life. I cannot stomach the kneeling of an adulterer." Chen Tianhai knelt to empty air, humiliated to bleeding red eyes. "You." "What, you?" the old man said, not even turning. "You think I've gotten old and want to go myself?" And killed the protagonist's fury dead, because Wei Xuanyang isn't a spoiled title. He's an undefeated general, and quarreling with him is a form of suicide. Chen Ziyun hauled his son up and begged for the exit. "Your Highness, please. This was my failure to raise him. We've knelt. Have mercy this once." And I gave it with a hook. "Grandfather, I think Uncle Chen's words have merit. Please agree." Chen Ziyun sagged with relief and smiled at me, grateful, right up until I finished the sentence. "Then tomorrow, I'll go to Uncle Chen's house and kowtow to him, and then have an affair with Aunt Gu. Magnanimous Uncle Chen surely won't mind." The Chancellor nearly coughed up blood. You rude little brat. Have you no respect for your elders?" And I put on my most innocent face. "But uncle, isn't that exactly what you just proposed? Your son and my wife are caught in adultery, and you kneel, say a few soft words, and it's all forgiven? If you can be that shameless, why can't I?" And the whole hall of the dynasty's most powerful men burst out laughing. The young people cut deeper than we do. Caught red-handed and talk your way out with pretty words? It's not that cheap. Until Chen Ziyun's own money minister leaned to his ear and whispered, "Let it go, Chancellor. A wise man doesn't fight a losing battle." And the Chancellor, choking on a humiliation decades in the making, gritted out the only thing left. "Your Highness, I will give you a satisfactory answer within 3 days." Then Chen Tianhai remembered he had a trump card and reached for it, and I felt the plot try to save its protagonist. In the book, this is where he wins. He accuses my grandfather of embezzling military funds. The war god can't outtalk a scholar. The Empress turns on the Lin family, and the slow massacre begins. So I didn't let him get the sentence out. I stepped in front of him and re-aimed the whole cannon before he could fire it. "Your Majesty," because the Empress had just swept in, and I'll get to that in a moment. I know exactly what Brother Chen wants to say, and there's no need. What he's really here to discuss is the Regent's mansion selling 800 acres of ancestral land last spring to pension the soldiers who died at the border, out of our own pockets, asking nothing in return. Chen Tianhai's pupils shrank. "No, your Lin family clearly embezzled." "So you're admitting," I said, wheeling on him, gentle as a knife, "that the Ministry of Revenue withheld the dead soldiers' pensions in the first place? And forced my grandfather to sell his ancestral land to cover a hole your faction dug?" And there it was. The Ministry of Revenue was the Gu family's own lifeblood, run by their man Chen Hongfei, and I just turned Chen Tianhai's killing blow into a confession pointed straight at his father's treasury. Then I buried them. As for embezzlement, the 6 guards of the capital, 200,000 men. Pick any soldier at random and ask if his pay was ever a single day late. Now, the Gu family's drunken immortal tower. Everyone thinks it's a restaurant. Your Majesty, send your guards to the cellar under the back courtyard, and I guarantee the treasure there is worth no less than 300,000 taels. The Gu father and son nearly had their eyes leave their skulls, because that cellar was the Gu family's whole secret fortune, every bribe and skim of a generation, the exact treasure that made Chen Tianhai a legend in the book. And I hadn't just named it. I'd named the number, which meant one thing to Chen Ziyan, whose face went from red to grave in a heartbeat. There is a traitor in my house. And it meant another thing to the Empress, whose beautiful, borrowed face had gone tight with the one thing an emperor cannot stomach: betrayal. 300,000 taels of it, hidden under a noodle shop. She'd come, this Empress, Murong Yan, and I was the only soul alive who knew the he on that throne was a woman playing a dead prince. A secret even the protagonist wouldn't stumble onto until the Lin family was already ash. She'd meant to breeze in and bless the Lin wedding and quietly help her clever favorite out of a jam. Instead, she'd watched her favorite exposed as an adulterer and his whole family unmasked as thieves. And she was done. Enough for today. No one is to speak of it again. Chen Hongfei was already on his knees swearing innocence. Chen Ziyun was already stammering that the 300,000 was saved up for Her Majesty's birthday and would be handed over to the treasury at once, and I swear I heard the sound of the Gu family's heart cracking, because embezzling 300,000 feels wonderful, and donating it hurts like surgery. The Empress shut her eyes in disgust and left. Chen Ziyun promised my grandfather an answer within 3 days and dragged his ruined son out. And only when the last of them was gone did the war god turn to me, clap my shoulder, and say low, "Whether you beat that woman to death or drown her in a pig cage, it's your call now." He meant Shalia. He walked out laughing, thinking, for the first time in his life, that his useless grandson might just be worth the throne. Quick-witted, flawless tongue, he's got my blood after all. The last man kneeling in that room was Xiao Fuming, my new father-in-law, weeping his practiced crocodile tears and offering up his own daughter for disposal, if only I'd spare the Liu clan. In the book, this man helps carve up my family and throws wine in my face when I'm a limbless thing on the riverbank. So I sat down, sipped my tea, let him kneel, and told him the plain truth. I raised up the Liu family for Leah, and now that Leah loves Chen Tianhai, the Liu family has no reason to exist. He crawled and begged for one more chance, and because a spy's family makes a fine leash, I gave him one, with a line I couldn't stop from slipping out. Admit your mistake, correct it, and you're a good comrade. He had no idea what a good comrade was. He didn't need to. It meant, keep being useful, and the day you stop, so do you. Which left the bride, kneeling in her red dress, tears wiped away, studying me like she'd never seen me before, and she hadn't. Because the man she'd married was a drooling sycophant, and the man in front of her had just out-schemed the smartest men in the empire. She wanted to know why I'd hidden it. I didn't answer. She had one request, and I already knew it, because I'd read her. We're married, but I promised myself to Bei Chen, don't touch me. Let me keep my most precious thing for the man I love. I looked at this woman who'd spy my whole clan into a mass grave and asked, quiet, even if it costs your entire family their lives? Her eyes went wide. You are the single most useful tool I have against Chen Tianhai, I told her. How could I possibly not use you? What happened after that is between the moonlight and the window, and I'll only say that the original Wei Jiang's ruined body nearly transmigrated a second time from the effort, and I got up the next morning with my legs distinctly unsteady. Morning brought the one face in this whole rotten mansion I actually trusted. Ling Yu, my maid, came in with the washwater, and here's the thing the book taught me about her that the mansion never bothered to learn. When everything fell apart, when the Lin family burned and Wei Jiang was made a human pig, Ling Yu was dragged off to the entertainers' bureau, and the next day she put a pair of scissors to her own throat and screamed, "I was born the prince's woman, and I'll die the prince's ghost. Don't any of you filthy dogs touch me," and drove it into the artery. She was the only person in the story who ever loved the original for himself and got nothing for it but a knife she held herself. If she weren't a bondservant, I'd have married her outright. I didn't have time for that yet, but I had time to keep her close and keep her safe, which in this house was the same as keeping my own heart in a locked drawer. I sent her to put quiet, quick-eyed maids on Xiaolia, watch the spy, report everything, don't get caught, it's no fun if you get caught, and went to see who was waiting in the front courtyard. Because my new bride was already lying to me, and my grandfather was already sleepwalking toward a battlefield 3 months out. And somewhere across the city, the protagonist was licking his wounds and reaching for the next gift the author meant to hand him. A gift I intended to steal right out of his hands before he ever knew it existed. But first, let me show you what my wedding night bought, over at the Gu family's precious drunken immortal tower, because a scheme this good deserves to be enjoyed from the losing side. The cellar was open, servants hauling out box after heavy box, a generation of embezzlement filing out the door toward the imperial treasury. Madame Chen had already fainted from crying twice. Every time they revived her, she draped herself over another box and started again. "That's my dowry. Put it down. I can't go on living." While Chen Ziyun, watching his life's fortune walk away, screamed at her to stop wailing over her uncle's money and nearly slapped her before the butler caught his arm. His faction stood around comforting him, which mostly meant reminding him out loud that it'd take 30 to 50 years to earn it back. Poor Chancellor Chen. So that by the end, he was angrier than when they started. And through it all, one thought was eating him alive, the same one I'd planted with a single number. Someone in my house told Wei Jiang exactly what was in that cellar. There is a traitor at my core. His solution was elegantly Gu family. Replace every servant in the restaurant, all of them. A few dozen lives no more troubling than cutting a few dozen leeks. Then the news came that turned his morning from disaster to catastrophe. His son, his prodigy, the pride of the Gu family, had left his room for half an hour and come back with his face beaten to a bruised pulp. What? Chen Ziyun couldn't fathom it. Who in this city would dare touch my son? Who indeed? Let me back up half an hour. I'd gone to the front courtyard and found my one real friend in this world, Qin Mingju, youngest son of the Duke of Shun, short, round, honey water drinking, sprawled in a chair looking exactly like a big-eyed thief, and the only man besides me who'd cursed Chen Tianhai loudest the night he was caught. In the book, Qin Mingju is a good-hearted idiot with no future who spends his days scheming women with the original Wei Jiang, and who, after I'm made a human pig, feeds and waters me on that riverbank for 3 months out of loyalty, then falls apart when I die and drinks himself into a fatal case of syphilis within the year. A tragic, ridiculous, decent man. He greeted me, "Big brother!" already planning our assault on the Yanlai Tower proprietress, and I cut the whole thing off. No more brothels, no more of it, not for me and not for you, and if that syphilis line lands the way it lands in the book, I'll never forgive either of us. Then Ling Yu slipped in and whispered that my bride had changed into plain clothes and gone out the back door. I looked at the sky and asked what day it was. The 7th. Of course it was the 7th. Because on the 7th of every month, in the book, Chen Tianhai and Xiao Lia meet at the Xinfeng Tea House to trade poetry with the city's talented set, she being that rarest thing in this dynasty, a woman actually educated, which is precisely why the protagonist can't resist her. And today, at that tea house, Chen Tianhai was scheduled to meet the single most important person of his entire fictional life, a female assassin named Jasmine. She'd fail to kill a merchant, take an internal injury, flee, and get rescued by Chen Tianhai coming out a back door. And from that rescue would flow everything. Jasmine becomes his bodyguard, teaches him to fight, follows him to war. Through her, he connects to Tiandao, the #1 assassin guild in the realm, and the guild's own mistress, Fairy Qingxia, joins his harem and hands him a private network of spies and killers. That single alley rescue is the hinge the whole protagonist legend swings on. So I decided to be standing in that alley first. "Mingju, job for you." I sent him to fetch Chunky Li, take 20 of my personal guards to the Yuanda casino, and put it about that everything today was on me. Qin Mingju nearly came out of his chair. I was the only man in the entire capital reckless enough to buy a whole casino around, and also, famously, the poorest of all the noble sons. But I told him it was real, and to move. What I didn't spell out for him? The Yuanda casino was where Chen Tianhai would chase Jasmine after she slipped him, and a beaten, bewildered protagonist stumbling into a casino full of my guards on a day everything's on brother way was going to have a very educational afternoon. That's how the pride of the Gu family got his face rearranged in 30 minutes. He went looking for his destined assassin and found my hospitality instead. Meanwhile, I took the alley myself. Mai Tsai Alley, where the book said Jasmine would land after leaping from the tea house balcony with her injury, and where Chen Tianhai was meant to catch her. I waited, bored, listening, until the pretty tap-tap-tap of small boots on stone came down the alley mouth, footfalls just uneven enough to tell me she was hurt. Jasmine, right on schedule. Your luck is mine now, Chen Tianhai. I reached out of the shadows and pulled her to me. Her sword was half drawn before I finished moving. Who, you're asking to die? Shh, I put on my most trustworthy face. You're the chivalrous woman who tried to kill Han Longwei, yes? I'm Wei Jiang. I'm here to save you. The name snagged something in her. She'd heard it, couldn't place it, and while she hesitated, the rough shouts of 6 burly men rounded the far corner. Dead end behind her, killers ahead, an internal injury slowing her sword. I pulled out a blue scholar's robe. Don't think. Men's clothes. Now. I'll get you clear. Half dead and out of options, she put it on, and I swept her long hair up and tucked a folding fan behind her collar, and turned an injured assassin into a bookish young gentleman, and took her wrist. Don't tense. Even if this goes wrong, I can protect you. And walked her past the burly men as 2 poets strolling out for air. The thugs slowed, because 2 figures appearing from nowhere in a dead-end alley is the kind of thing that snags even a stupid man's eye. And Jasmine, wounded and cornered and led by the wrist by a stranger who knew her crime by name, walked straight into the con, because the alternative was a sword she was too hurt to swing. She had no idea she'd just been unplugged from the protagonist's legend and rerouted into mine. She'd been the first gear in the machine that would have made Chen Tianhai a god. Now she was walking out of the story on the arm of the villain, and the hero was across town getting punched in a casino, wondering where his life had gone. The author gave Chen Tianhai a destiny. I was going to take it apart, one stolen gift at a time, and the assassin on my arm was only the first piece. The thugs blocked the alley mouth, and one of them opened his mouth to curse, right up until he clocked the golden crown on my head and the 4-clawed dragon jade at my belt, and his friend yanked him into a bow so fast it nearly dislocated something. Forgive us, my lord. We're only hunting an assassin. Get out. Yes, yes. And they fled into the alley to search for a woman who was, at that moment, strolling out the other end, disguised as a scholar on my arm. I could have flashed my rank and walked her out clean without the costume. I didn't. And here's the calculation, because it's the whole game. Jasmine belongs to Tiandao, the assassin guild every official and merchant in the realm wants dead. If the regent's heir is seen protecting a killer, the empress, the court, even the common people turn on the Lin family. And the Lin family survives long-term only by standing with the people, because a war god with the commoners behind him is a war god the empress can hate all she likes and never touch. So, no fingerprints. I sent Jasmine quietly back to the mansion and went to collect my second theft of the day. The Yuanda Casino. Not the biggest gambling house in the capital, but the one with the fattest daily take. Over 200,000 taels a day. The Gu family's true cash cow, and the city's favorite laundry. But I wasn't there for the money. I was there for a person. Guo Mei, the manager. Because in the book, this manager is secretly the sharpest intelligence operative the Gu family owns. The woman who eventually builds Chen Tianhai a spy network reaching into every ministry in the dynasty, and becomes another of his doted-on concubines. Right now, nobody, not even the Gu family, has noticed what she is. Nobody but me. So today I steal her before the protagonist ever learns her worth. I found Chunky Li and Qin Mingzhu across the street, 20 of my guards squatting over a terrified tea stall owner's whole supply. I'll spare you the 2 of them debating the relative merits of a brothel proprietress's feet. Suffice to say, I stood there wishing the earth would take me, and that if I didn't need to keep up the Playboy act, I'd have cut both of them loose years ago. 10 men on the doors, I said. The rest inside. Chunky, watch my signals. And Chunky, my chief muscle, cracked his knuckles because watch my signals has only ever meant one thing, and it isn't cards. Inside was a golden hell. Jeweled pillars, Persian carpet, bloodshot gamblers screaming at dice while men who'd won stuffed silver down serving girls' fronts, and off in the corners, the losers. A man slapping his own face bloody over a lost fortune, a family being dragged off by debt collectors. Qin Mingju, soft-hearted idiot that he is, wanted to go comfort them. Chunky told him ordinary folk who gamble away their children's food deserve the beating. I nodded and felt nothing, because they'd done it to themselves. And then, before I saw her, I heard her, a ripe, laughing voice sliding across the floor. Guo Mei, in crimson gauze, every gesture a temptation, walking straight at me because the news of my wedding had already crossed the city, and she was terrified I'd come to burn her employer's house down. She wasn't wrong. So the manager greets me herself. "You're too kind. Your Highness always did love teasing this servant with your words." "I want to play," I said, "but not dice." "Dominoes, then, or leaf cards, or—" "No," I smiled. "I want to play with you." She laughed it off until Chunky stepped up looking like a landslide and offered to help her out of her clothes personally, and her face went to ice and she waved a dozen guards out of the walls, secure behind the Gu family name. "No need to make it tense," I said mildly. "This is Gu property, after all. Just kill a few of them, symbolically." Guo Mei's relief lasted exactly one heartbeat until my next sentence, an arm around her waist. "You don't represent the Gu family at all. From today, you're mine." And Chunky let the guards off the leash. My men were soldiers who'd crawled home over corpses. Her guards were casino muscle. It was a massacre with a 15-minute clock, and one of my men tore a guard's head clean off, and the gamblers scattered screaming, and Guo Mei stood dead still in the middle of it without flinching, which honestly earned my respect. "Wei Jiang," she said, cold as a blade, bound now, hand and foot. "If you've got the nerve, wait right here for the Gu family to arrive." Oh, I intended to. Because across the city, at that tea house, Chen Tianhai had just finished a poem and leaned in for a kiss from Xiaolia when the door burst open. "Young master, the casino's been wrecked. Come quick." And Xiaolia, forgetting herself, snapped in the tone of a lady of the house. "Someone dared touch our place?" Ka! And Chen Tianhai's fool heart soared, because she'd said our. She'd finally claimed him, and he thought, "Wei Jiang, you got her body by force, but I have her heart. You'll always be beneath me." The two swept off hand in hand to defend their honor, the protagonist gliding straight into the trap while congratulating himself on his love life. He arrived draped in sunlight like the author still loved him, his casino people weeping at his feet, his charm so high they worshipped him, even in ruins. That's a real protagonist halo, and Guo Mei's eyes lit with the same devotion the instant she saw her rescuer. Unfortunately for the moment, she was tied up in my lap. "Young Master Gu, save me!" But Chen Tianhai wasn't looking at her. He'd just spotted the straw hat next to him and gone pale, praying I was blind, because if I recognized Xiaolia here, at the scene of his casino, the day after the wedding, he'd have prayed harder if he'd known I'd clocked her the second I walked in and simply chosen not to spend the card yet. He tried the law. "You are the regent's heir. How dare you? Do you not respect his majesty?" "Don't wave the throne at me, Chen Tianhai. I came to have fun. Is fun illegal now?" "Is this fun?" pointing at the bodies. "Yes. I wanted to play with your manager. She said no. She had me beaten. And I'm the regent's heir. I can't just be beaten by anyone, can I?" And when Guo Mei shouted that I was lying, well, let's say I made a point about who was in charge that left her shrieking, and left Chen Tianhai's neck red with a rage he couldn't act on, because a prince manhandling a casino woman is beneath him to intervene over and impossible for him to ignore. Then I twisted the knife where it lived. "Shame, Chen Tianhai? You, who cheated with my wife in my own house yesterday, want to lecture me on shame?" Etienne looked, smiling, right at the straw hat. "You were all over my wife yesterday, and here you are with a new woman today. I do hope Leah won't be heartbroken when she hears." Xiaolia took an involuntary step back. Chen Tianhai couldn't answer without either naming her, confessing, or standing there as a womanizing cad. Either way, it cost him. Protagonist or not, there's no clean move when the villain's read your whole hand. So he changed the subject like a smart man and demanded I pay for the casino. Fine. Then just give me the casino. Because I knew what it was to them, not the money, but the face, and a laundering base, and a spy hub, and in a court where the highborn fight over face above all things, gutting the Gu family's reputation cuts deeper than any pile of silver. This was the plan. Sever the Gu family's luck, piece by piece, and drape the protagonist's stolen halo over my own shoulders until they collapsed. And no, I couldn't just kill him and be done. The world was 7 kingdoms of hungry wolves, and Southern Chu on our border bared its teeth every year. Gut the Gu family entirely, and the royal house. Grows unchecked and paranoid. Let the court fracture, and Chu pours through the gap and the whole country bleeds. The Empress resented my family, but wouldn't move against us openly, because when Chu invades, she'll need the war god and every soldier he commands. The Gu family, though, wanted to burn the regent's mansion down and rule alone, so I couldn't kill them. I just had to keep them on a very short, very humiliating leash. He refused the casino, of course, so I offered him a deal instead, with my owl's laugh that put a chill even down Chunky's spine. You like my wife, so today I'll trade you my wife for the casino. Wei Jiang, you bastard. And it wasn't Chen Tianhai who exploded first. It was Xiaolia, who ripped off her own straw hat to scream at me, which was exactly the effect I'd ordered. A dog's belly can't hold 2 ounces of good ghee. I'd bet she couldn't sit on an insult like that, and she couldn't. Chen Tianhai's head buzzed as his disguised lover unmasked herself in the middle of his ruined casino in front of 100 witnesses, the single worst teammate a protagonist has ever been cursed with, confessing unprompted for the 2nd time in 2 days. You, I pointed, all wounded drama. What are you doing here? And then, because the audience was perfect, I threw Guomei onto the couch and put my fist through Chen Tianhai's face. 1 punch, then a whip kick, then 5 more strikes, until the pride of the Gu family was a bruised heap on his own casino floor, roaring, "Haven't you had enough?" And me answering, "No, you keep seducing my wife. I'll beat you to death and dare His Majesty to say a word." Xiaolia stopped it the only way she could, threw herself over him and swore she'd die on the spot if I hit him again. Which I'd counted on, because yesterday's scandal stayed in a small circle, but today 100 common gamblers had watched the Empress's golden scholar get beaten for seducing the regent's bride, and that story would run through the city like fire, and there was nothing left to squeeze from the scene. Newton was right, his face hurt, but my shoes hurt too. Junkie. Home. This place is bad luck. I collected Guomei off the couch, told Xiaolia that if I caught her a 3rd time, she could explain it to her grandfather herself, and told Chen Tianhai to send his father to discuss the casino in person, and walked out with the Gu family's secret spy master over my shoulder and the protagonist bleeding on the floor, swearing he'd turn me into a human pig. He didn't know he'd already lost his assassin that morning, and his spy master that afternoon. 2 of the 3 pillars the author built his legend on, and it wasn't even dinner time. But the Gu family doesn't take a beating quietly. Chen Ziyun found his son smashing vases and screaming, heard the whole humiliating tale, edited, naturally, to leave out the part where he'd been sneaking off to meet the regent's wife, and went white with fury. He hit my son, stole my manager, wrecked my casino, and declared he'd go to the palace and find out whether the great Qian dynasty belonged to the Empress or to the Lin family. Because there was one card the Gu family still held that I couldn't beat with fists or wit. The Empress herself doted on Chen Tianhai, loved his talent, admired his devotion, couldn't make herself dislike him no matter what he did. And when father and son knelt in the Hall of State Affairs and she saw her favorite's face wrapped like a mummy, something in her chest clenched and she slammed the table and rose. Wei Xuanyang, what a fine grandson you've raised. Trampling the law in broad daylight? Does he have any respect for me at all? Guards, summon Wei Jiang to the palace. And that was the one summons I couldn't dodge with a scheme. I'd out-talked ministers and out-fought casino guards and stripped the protagonist of 2/3 of his destiny in a single day. Now the Empress herself, the one person in the dynasty above my grandfather, the woman whose secret only I knew, wanted me on my knees in front of her throne. And I was going to have to walk in there and win. But first, the spy master. Back at the mansion, I laid it out for Guomei plainly, because a woman like her can only be taken by force and then kept by cold logic, never charmed. You were carried out of that casino in front of the whole city. By tomorrow, everyone knows what happened between us, and the Gu family will never again trust a used woman as their manager. Besides, Chen Tianhai's whole heart is on my wife now. He'll never want you. So there's no future waiting for you at the Gu house. But follow me, and I'll make you a concubine with an imperial title, lift you from a merchant's dog to a titled lady. Follow Chen Tianhai, and all that waits is death. You're clever. Weigh it. And I left her to think, because I'm meant to have her, the woman who, in the book, builds the protagonist a spy web into every ministry in the realm, belongs to the strongest man in the room. And I had decided that was me. Then the harder audience, my grandfather. I found Xiaolia kneeling outside his gate in white, weeping, begging me to soften the old man. Husband, help me. And I felt nothing but disgust, because here was a woman who wanted the protagonist's arms, but not her family's punishment, who'd spy my clan into a grave and cry the whole way. So I gave her comfort, with a knife in it. You know I love you, but no one talks grandfather down when he's angry. Kneel and be patient. You'll faint by this time tomorrow, and once you're unconscious, it won't hurt anymore. And I left her gaping and went in. The war god was at his sand table, where he stood every single day, staring at the Taihang Mountains, the land Great Qian lost, the land he'd dreamed his whole life of taking back. The nation's too weak, he sighed, and I'm past 60, and the Lin family has no heir worth the name. We'll be swallowed. It hurt to hear, because I knew the truth the book had told me. This old man wasn't losing to choose armies. He was losing to politics. A plain soldier who despised intrigue, surrounded by a court of scholars who'd starve his troops of food and rusted out weapons the moment the war started, on the advice of men like Chen Tianhai, and call it strategy. He was the only reason Great Qian still existed, and the Empress and the Gu family were quietly sharpening knives for his back. With me here, grandfather, I said, Great Qian won't fall. Nonsense! He snapped his bamboo pointer in half. A 20-year-old with no ambition who spends his days whoring. Today you dragged home a courtesan. What use are you to a nation? I didn't argue, because in this Confucian world, a grandson who talks back gets beaten to death, and the magistrate applauds. I knelt and I explained. The courtesan was Chen Tianhai's secret intelligence chief, and I'd taken her to blind the Gu family among the common folk. The beating at the casino was because I'd caught Xiaolia meeting Chen Tianhai there. And if Chen Ziyun ran to the palace to complain, all the better, because I'd walk out of it owning the casino. And the old war god sat there and stared, because the trembling coward he'd raised was gone, and in his place was a young man speaking level and clear, every word reasoned and unanswerable. Is this the Jennur I raised from a baby? He waved me up. At least you're honest. You even admitted the beating, and told me to study military texts and stop scheming in the mud. Grandfather, I thought, you read too many military texts. That's exactly how you die. But I kept it behind my teeth. Then he stood and drew a token from his belt, and my heart nearly stopped. The tiger tally of the 4 great camps, command of the 60,000 soldiers guarding the capital, the exact thing Chen Tianhai dreams of his whole legend to get. I had my acceptance speech half written, thank you, grandfather. Thank you, heaven and earth. And then the old man thought better of it and tucked it back in his belt, and my soul left my body. No, put that back on me. It's wasted on you. But of course he wouldn't hand real military power to a grandson who'd been a drunk gambler 2 days ago. No sane general would, not with a country on the line. Fair. I'd have to earn it. So I bowed out, a little crushed, and walked into the eunuch waiting in the courtyard with an imperial summons, which meant the Empress was ready, and so was I. I'll skip the part where I had to dig a bribe for the eunuch out of Chunky's crotch purse. The palace matters more, because when I got there, Chen Ziyun and Chen Tianhai had already spent an hour painting me to the Empress as a lawless monster, assault, murder, kidnapping, contempt for the throne, and Murong Yen was ready to have me killed, and the moment I was announced, she snarled, "Get this bastard in here!" And Chen Ziyun actually laughed, certain the timid Wei Jiang would come rolling in on his belly and disgrace the regent's mansion for good. I strode in with my back straight. "Your subject greets your majesty." "Wei Jiang, did you not hear me? I said get in here." "Oh, I heard that." Faint smile. 3 jaws dropped, because the old Wei Jiang shook like a mouse before a cat at the mere word emperor, and this one was bored. How dare you defy an imperial summons? Does the Lin family mean to rebel? Rebel? Your Majesty, where would you get such an idea? Has someone been whispering it to you? And I turned and looked, slow, at the Gu father and son, who both suddenly found the floor fascinating. Since the dynasty's founding, the Regent Prince has held the privilege of not kneeling before the throne, of wearing sword and shoes in the palace. As the Regent's heir, I'm exempt from even kneeling, so why would I roll? The Empress opened her mouth, and nothing came out. Then I did what I came to do. I took every one of my crimes and rehung them around Chen Tianhai's neck. Assault? Kidnapping? Yes, his son deserved the beating. His casino deserved the wrecking. His manager deserved the taking. And none of it happened without cause. This morning, Chen Tianhai lured my newlywed wife to that casino, threatened to break her legs if she refused, and I caught them in the act. Your Majesty, if someone seduced your consort, would you look away? Chen Tianhai leapt up like a bandaged mummy. I invited her to a tea house to discuss poetry, and I closed the door on him. Then how did your poetry end up in a casino? Dare you say I didn't catch you there? Silence. And in that silence, Merong Yan started to suspect the Gu account wasn't the whole account. So Chen Tianhai threw his lover to the wolves to save his own standing. It was your wife who seduced me, because to a man clawing for the throne's favor, a woman is nothing. Bad instinct. Because he'd forgotten, as had everyone but me, that the emperor was a woman. And a woman hears, she seduced me, it's her fault, very differently than a man does. Merong Yan frowned, displeased, and I twisted it. My wife seduced you? Chen Tianhai, you flatter yourself. Look at me. Could she possibly seduce a thing like you? Lower rank, weaker frame, and, frankly, in the bedroom, a green boy like you can't touch a technically skilled man like... Wei Jiang, what is a technically skilled man? The Empress asked, honestly baffled, and I opened my mouth to explain the concept of technique in the imperial bedchamber, and watched her face go scarlet before I got to the punchline, and remembered, one beat too late, that the emperor was a woman. Too much talk, too many mistakes. But then Chen Tianhai delivered a divine assist. Flushing red with wounded male pride, he roared that his wine-ruined body couldn't compare, and demanded we prove it on the spot. And Chen Ziyun, unable to let the family honor stand insulted, actually proposed to the Empress of Great Qian that the 3 men hold a virility contest in the throne room. Loser gets castrated. I have never in either life fought so hard not to laugh. Merong Yan slammed the table. You are ministers of the realm, and you compete in filth in my hall? He went so furious, her chest bindings nearly burst, and in her rage snapped, Fine, the 3 of you, compete. Loser is castrated. Go! At which Chen Ziyun instantly discovered he was far too old to enter, and while they scrambled, I reeled it back to the only thing that mattered. Chancellor Chen, you swore my grandfather an answer within 3 days. Now I've caught your son a second time. In front of His Majesty, tell us how you'll compensate the Lin family. He squirmed. He tried to say he'd promised the regent, not the heir. I said grandfather had authorized me. He refused to hand over the casino. My whole family will starve. Censor. He refused to give up his ministry's oversight. That's His Majesty's own decree. So I turned to the throne and drove the last nail. Your Majesty, it seems the Gu family means to break its word. A chief minister of the realm with no credibility at all. Does Your Majesty dare keep such a man? And that finished it. Merong Yan had heard enough perversion and adultery in her hall of state for one lifetime, and she ruled, and every word of it landed on the Gu family. Chen Tianhai, you crossed the line, seduced an innocent woman. Your crime deserves death. For your past service I'll spare you, but you will never see Xiao Lia again. The Yuanda Casino is forfeit to the Lin family. This matter is closed. Chen Tianhai stood there, stunned, unable to comprehend how he'd walked in to file a complaint and walked out having lost his casino and his mistress, beaten in public, robbed of his spy master, and now stripped of the woman and the money too, by a man he still thought was a brainless drunk. I bowed deep, gracious as sunrise. Many thanks to Chancellor Chen and Brother Chen for your generosity. I'll take over the casino this very evening, and rest assured, I won't keep a single member of your family. Chen Ziyun nearly fainted from rage. His son had to catch him. But here's the thing about beating people this thoroughly. You should always know what it costs on the other side of the wall. Because Murong Yan went back to her chambers, threw her golden crown on the table, and let her maid, Fanhua, the one soul alive besides me who knew the emperor was a woman, her sister in all but blood, talk her through what had just happened. And Fanhua, who was more than a little in love with Chen Tianhai herself, pointed out the truth. Wei Jiang did commit every crime, and simply talked her into blaming the victims and rewarding the aggressor. Murong Yan realized, too late, she'd been led by the nose. And rather than lose face reversing a king's word, she chose the smarter move. She'd go to the Gu family's house for dinner that very night and warm them back up with a little imperial goodwill and keep her favorite close. Then she sat before her bronze mirror, let the fake mustache and the emperor's growl fall away, and looked at a tired girl's face and murmured, "Such a beautiful face. I wonder which scoundrel ends up with it." She pictured Chen Tianhai and smiled, and shook the impossible thought away. "Father," she told the empty room, "I'm so tired. Your daughter really doesn't want to be emperor anymore." Remember that face behind the crown. I was the only one who'd seen it, and a secret like that, in a court like this, is either the sharpest knife you own or the one they cut you with. I went home to dinner, 4 dishes, a cabbage carved into a peony, the whole austere table of a prince's heir, which is when I learned my second problem of the day. Chunky and Qin Mingju crashed in and grabbed chicken legs like they owned the place. Ling Yu, the one loyal soul in the house, brought tea and rubbed my back, and told me the injured woman, Jasmine, had shut herself in her room all day and said nothing. Good. Let her sit with the fact that a stranger knew her crime and saved her life anyway. And then I called for the steward and the account books and cracked open the ledger of the great and terrible Regent's mansion. Under 5,000 taels. The Lin family, Grand Marshal, Regent Prince, the war god who held up a dynasty, was flat broke. Living hand-to-mouth off a government salary and fief taxes, 300 servants to feed, and last year the old man had sold the ancestral land to pension dead soldiers out of his own pocket. Keep this up, and the war god himself would go hungry. And here's the trap the whole book turns on. My grandfather is a soldier who despises trade, too proud and too honest to run a single business, in a court where every other great house quietly bankrolls itself with restaurants and casinos and merchant fleets. Honesty is a beautiful thing. It cannot put rice in 300 bowls. If I was going to keep this family alive through the 3 months to the invasion, wit and fists weren't going to be enough. I was going to have to make this bankrupt war god's household rich, fast, and from nothing, in a dynasty that hadn't invented half the things I remembered, before Southern Chu came over the border and the author called in the debt on all our lives. Lucky for me, a modern man who spent his later years around company men knows a thing or two about money that a Confucian court has never dreamed of. Step 1. A carriage company. Because in this city, horses are military-grade luxuries. You can afford to buy one and go broke feeding it, so almost nobody owns a ride, and everybody walks Juche Avenue on foot, which means the man who invents the taxi owns the streets. So over dinner, I pitched my 2 idiot friends on the ground floor. The 3 of us pool our money, 500 taels each. In 3 months, I pay each of you a dividend of 50 taels a month. Chunky counted on his fingers and sniffed that 50 a month was nothing. Qin Mingju, whose family runs cloth and grain and actually has money, agreed it was chicken feed next to his manager's 1,000 a month. You children, I sighed, and did the math slow. 50 taels a month is 600 a year, is 6,000 in 10 years, forever, passed to your grandchildren, for a one-time 500. And that's just the capital. Every city in Great Xi'an, over 300,000 souls, gets its own line. Reinvest and your cut only grows. 2 men with no head for business, but an excellent nose for free money, lit up like lanterns. Qin Mingju's family, thrilled their useless son wanted to invest in something, threw the money at him. Chunky gritted his teeth and went to squeeze it out of his own father. Deal struck. Only old steward Wei Jiang sat there like a meditating monk, and afterward pulled me aside. 500 taels is a great deal. Shouldn't we consult the master? Go tell him. Once grandfather agrees, send the silver to my room." And Wei Jiang stood there baffled, because 2 days ago this body couldn't pry 5 taels out of the old man, and here I was betting the war god would sign off without a blink. Something's wrong with the crown prince, he thought for the 100th time. He wasn't wrong. Then I went to close the sale on my spy master. Guo Mei was still refusing food, half a day into a hunger strike, and I sat across from her and told her flat, the Empress had granted me the casino, and if she pledged to me, she stayed manager. She laughed in my face. "You, the regent's drunk heir, expect me to believe the throne handed you a Gu family treasure overnight? Fine, come see it yourself, and when it turns out to be mine, you serve me. When it turns out I lied, I'll personally take you back to Chen Tianhai." She took the bet, because a woman still half in love with the protagonist keeps a sliver of hope, and I'd read that sliver cold. Into the carriage, off to the casino. The whole way she needled me, and the whole way I ignored her, until I asked, out of nowhere, "Do you know a carpenter?" "Why?" "I need carriages built, 300 of them, 10 days. Guo Mei nearly came off her seat, because there were 40 or 50 carriages in the entire capital, and they all belonged to officials, and 300 sounded less like a business than a coup. 300 carriages, Wei Jiang? Are you raising a rebellion? And where will you get 300 horses? The horses are my problem. You give me a number and a timeline. 700 taels, she calculated, half a month. 10 days. Money's no object. Work them day and night. And when she snorted that even every carpenter in the city couldn't build 30 a day, and sniffed that I was awfully sure she'd lose our little wager before we'd even reach the casino, I gave her the truth with a smile. "You will definitely lose." She rolled her eyes, and God help me, she was beautiful doing it. A woman aged into her charm like a painting, and I'd spent the whole book fantasizing about exactly this face. And here it was, scowling at me in my own carriage. Then we pulled up to the Yuanda Casino, cordoned off by Chunky's black armored guards, Gu servants filing out, blood still on the floor from the afternoon. Guo Mei looked at it, and the world tilted under her, and she turned and bowed. Guo Mei, manager of the Yuanda Casino, greets her master. "Good girl," I lifted her up. "It's yours to run. I won't interfere, won't ask a single question, except one thing." She waited. 3 fingers. 100,000 taels. In 3 months. She nearly swallowed her own tongue. Because a family of 3 lives comfortably on 5 taels a year, and the entire tax revenue of the Great Qian dynasty is 6 million taels, and I just asked one casino to net 100,000 in a season. She ground her teeth and told me it was a pipe dream. Forgive her, she couldn't. And I smiled and walked deeper into my new property and left the words hanging behind me. No, you can. Because I already had the plan, cooked up the moment I wrecked the place. The Gu family used this casino to launder dirty money, so they kept it quiet. My money's clean. I don't need quiet. I need crowds. And a casino's only 2 engines are cheating and lending, and both need one thing above all, people through the door. So I leaned in and told Guo Mei how I'd fill it. I'm going to hold a tournament, and the winner gets named Gambling King by imperial decree, proclaimed across the realm. Her jaw hit the floor. Your Highness, the Empress would never. It's not a real title. No land, no power, just a name. But what do merchants and commoners want more than money in this dynasty? Face. Status. Drop that decree, and every gambler in Great Qian stampedes through that door. She stared at me, and the disdain drained out of her eyes, replaced not with admiration, but something colder, because to her this was a spoiled brat's insane scheme that would throw the country into chaos if thieves and pimps could buy the word king. So she offered me a wager of her own, that sly cat. If the Empress grants your decree, I'll hand you a great secret of the Gu family. If she refuses, you cut all ties with this casino, and I keep it myself. And there my smile went to ice, because I'd caught the tell. You think you can win something for nothing off me? You're still too green. I like ambition. I do not like ambition that outruns loyalty. This is the last time you get to hedge. Do it again and I crush you flat. Remember it. In this world, those who obey me thrive, and those who cross me end. And I took her bet, with a condition. If you lose, you kill someone for me. The word landed strange on her. She'd run a casino for years and never bloodied her own hands. Who could the regent's heir possibly need dead, who's beyond? the reach of a prince, except the royal family itself. We'll discuss the who, I said, when you pay the bet. And I left her standing in her new casino, sorting surprise from suspicion, wondering exactly what she'd just agreed to. Because I had a decree to extract from an empress who hated me, 100,000 tales to conjure, 300 carriages to build, and, that same evening, as it turned out, a dinner to ruin. But first, the spy in my own house made her last mistake. While I was away, Xiao Lia, still kneeling half dead outside my grandfather's gate, heard that I'd driven off with a casino woman, laughing, and the jealousy and rage boiled over exactly as her maid Mei Lan hoped. It's all Wei Jiang's fault I'm not with young Master Gu. Let's use grandfather's hatred of prostitutes against him. So she pounded on the war god's door and denounced me. He dragged a courtesan into the family. He's off doing shameful things. Give me a chance to catch him in the act, too. And the war god came out with his white brows knotted, because he'd just heard his once useless grandson wanted capital to build a business, and had been happy about it. And here was this woman trying to poison that. Zener is still your husband. A man keeping a few concubines is nothing. But you, seducing that Gu boy, is a capital crime. If not for your father, I wouldn't tolerate you in this house one more day. She played her last card. Then please, grandfather, order our divorce, thinking a divorce would free her to run to Chen Tianhai. And the war god laughed in her face. Divorce you? The Lin family's already branded immoral. Divorce you now, and I hand you and Chen Tianhai a free happy ending? No. Zener has plenty of ways to deal with you. And he went back inside and shut the door, and she collapsed, and hissed at her maid to run to her father right now, before it was too late, because the spy had just realized she was trapped in the web she'd helped spin, and the only door out was the one I was holding shut with a smile. Now, about that dinner, because on my way to scout the Gu residence, lit up like a festival, red carpet, servants in new clothes, which meant something was happening and probably aimed at me, I picked up my most important recruit of the whole affair, and he came cheap and broke my heart doing it. But first, a small thing happened on that street that tells you who I actually am under the Playboy costume, because a costume is all it is. As I walked, resplendent, hated, the common folk peeling away from my black armored guards like I was plague, a knot of beggars closed in instead, old and young, men and women, leaning on dog sticks, cracked bowls out. My lord, a little food, have mercy. I kowtow to you. And my guard Dogsy drew a knife and shoved it in a beggar's face. Clear off. Do you even know who this is? You're asking for it. And the man fled in terror. And I turned on my own guard, cold. Look at you, big man, drawing steel on a starving beggar. Your Highness, they're begging on your head. It's disrespectful. If you're not paying, walk on. There's no reason to shout at them. Your wages, I told him, come out of their taxes. What? Beggars pay tax? Idiot. Can't a beggar have 2 mu of land? Put the knife away before I take it and beat you with it. Because here's the thing the whole capital had wrong about me. A playboy is a soft, useless thing, but a playboy never bullies the man beneath him. That's a thug, a different animal entirely. The original Wei Jiang wasted money and chased women. He never once kicked a beggar. And these weren't the professional beggars of my old life with a QR code and a sob story. These were the genuinely starving, the kind who'd pray for you with their whole heart over 2 steamed buns. I filed the thought away. Build a beggar's guild once the money's stable. A man who feeds the hungry owns 1,000 pairs of eyes, and walked on. Remember this beat. It pays off very soon, when a man I've never met sells me a fortune for a token because the whole dynasty knows the Lin family starves itself to feed disaster victims. The people's love is a wall no empress can breach, and I was busy laying bricks in it without anyone noticing. The empress's arrival explained the festival. I watched from across the street as Morong Yan's dragon sedan set down, and the Gu father and son knelt to welcome her. And it clicked. This was a scene from the book. The day after my wedding, she visits the Gu house to smooth over the casino loss and keep her favorite close. And it's here, over dinner, that Chen Tianhai swears to help her destroy the Lin family on one condition, that Xiao Lia and her father be spared afterward. The plot had snapped right back onto its rails despite everything I'd done. So it needed derailing again, and I already had the tool, because one of my guards, a jumpy fellow named Dogsy, turned out to be carrying, of all things, a packet of colorless, odorless aphrodisiac powder. Enough for 10 men. Soldiers cooped up too long in camp turned strange in the city. I didn't ask. The plan wrote itself. Get that powder into Chen Tianhai's wine and let the protagonist disgrace himself in front of the very empress he was trying to seduce into an alliance. But I needed a man who could get into that kitchen unseen. Dogsy volunteered his best cat burglar, a thin, sharp-faced young soldier the men called Squirrel, whose real name was Yun Feng. And before he'd take the job, Yun Feng knelt and asked, dead serious, to borrow 10 taels of silver from the Regent Prince. Which sounds like an insult until he told me why. My mother's passed. I want to bury her properly. I've no money for a coffin. The whole street went quiet. Because here was a soldier who'd bled for this country, earning 300 coins a month he sent home untouched, who couldn't leave his camp for his own mother's funeral, whose sister had already sold herself into servitude to bury their father, and who now had nothing but a mother's body and empty hands. Something turned over in my chest. This is the rot the book never bothered to show. The men who hold the border. This poor. From today you're mine, I told him. I'll give your mother a proper funeral, and I'll buy your sister out of bondage so you can be a family again. Yun Feng looked up like the sky had cracked open and went straight to his knees. Your Highness, I, Yun Feng, will serve you like a slave the rest of my life and never betray you. I meant it, and he meant it, and I couldn't fix a whole rotten age with a funeral and 10 taels, but I could be decent to this one strong man, and that, it turned out, bought me a loyalty worth more than gold. He took the powder and one instruction, Chen Tianhai's cup only, and never let anyone see your face. He went over the wall like smoke, knocked out a serving boy, took his clothes, and slipped into the goo kitchen, and then had to wait, and wait, because Chen Tianhai barely drank at first. Inside, the dinner was going exactly the way the book promised. Murong Yan, all warmth now, toasting the Gu family, gently warning her golden boy to keep his mind on serving the throne and off other men's wives, and Chen Tianhai swearing through gritted teeth that he'd never see Xiaolia again and would help Her Majesty crush the Lin family and win the Central Plains. The alliance reforming cup by cup, which was exactly why the plot needed one drugged cup of wine. Yun Feng got his opening when a maid sent him to warm the young master's wine, Chen Tianhai having taken to drinking alone and hard, sour over 2 days of losing everything to me. Half a packet into the jade bottle, a white drift of powder settling under the wine, and back it went. And the pride of the Gu family drank it down. What followed I'll spare you the details of because it turned genuinely ugly, and a 16-year-old maid paid for it. The short version, and the version that mattered politically. The drug took Chen Tianhai apart in front of everyone. He went red as a monkey's backside, his reason burned away, and this refined scholar, the Empress's brilliant favorite, the man who'd just sworn to serve the throne with a steady mind, lost every scrap of control at his own family's table with the Empress 20 feet away. He disgraced himself so completely and so publicly that Murong Yan, who 2 hours earlier had come to warm the alliance back to life, watched her golden boy reveal himself as something she found simply disgusting, a man with no self-mastery at all, and the favor he'd spent all night rebuilding evaporated in a single scene. She confined him to his house in shame, barred from the Hanlin Academy until he reformed and swept out cold. And it got funnier and worse before it was done. In his madness, Chen Tianhai even grabbed for his own father, so that Chen Ziyun went from weeping over his poor boy to shrieking for the guards to tie the rebel down. And only then, far too late, did the chancellor realize his son had been drugged and start hunting for who'd done it. The one innocent in the whole business was that maid, Lianhua, 16, terrified, a scapegoat the Gu family meant to beat to death on the spot to protect the family's honor, because in that house, a servant girl's life is worth exactly one convenient story. And here's where Yun Feng stopped being just my cat burglar and became my man for life. He'd caused her ruin without meaning to, and he wasn't about to let her die for it. As the servants bound her to a bench to club her to death, a dark shape dropped out of the courtyard, put both guards on the ground, cut her loose, threw her over his shoulder, and went over the wall into the dark. "Why save me?" she wept. "No reason," he said, "except this house is too small to hold both of us." And he carried her out of that death and straight to my gate. I was still awake when he came, a day and a night without sleep, cold tea gone to mud, crickets under the sill, and Ling Yu asleep in the chair beside me with her cheek on her hand. I got up and laid my cloak over her shoulders, and she didn't stir, and I looked at her a moment. She's 15 years old. In this age, girls that young are married and mothers. But I'm a modern man, and I couldn't do it, and wouldn't. And that, I realized, standing over a sleeping child I'd chosen to protect instead of use, is the entire distance between me and the man I just drugged into a monster. He grabs, I cover with a cloak. Remember that difference. The whole story lives in it. Then Yunfeng knelt before me, mission accomplished, with a rescued maid in his arms, and not just any maid. Lianhua had been Chen Tianhai's own personal servant for years, close enough to know the man's every habit and secret. I'd sent Yunfeng to poison a cup, and he'd come home having also lifted the protagonist's confidant out from under his nose. When he told me the whole tale, Chen Tianhai disgracing himself, the Empress's fury, the confinement, I laughed until it hurt, because my wedge between the protagonist and the throne had just been driven a full inch deeper, and the Gu family had lost, in 2 days, its spy master, its casino, its mistress, its dinner alliance, and now its favor and its inside servant. But I put the laugh away fast, because Chen Ziyun is no fool, and by morning he'd guess at a drug and carry the suspicion to the palace, and I'd have to be standing there ahead of him when he did. I asked Yunfeng straight if he'd lost his heart to the girl he'd carried through the night, and he ducked his head and gave me the answer of a man who knew his place in this cruel world. She was a slave. His family's rules forbade the match. Better she stay in my household as a servant. Which told me 2 things, that he was honest to the bone, and that I'd just gained not 1 loyal soul that night, but 2. Lianhua, who'd expected only more cruelty from another rich man's house, was about to learn she'd landed somewhere very different. And Chen Ziyun, over at his ruined dinner, was already tracing the poisoned wine back to a serving girl, and about to beat the wrong scapegoat, and miss the man who'd actually done it, and walk into the palace tomorrow to accuse a maid who'd already vanished. The trap I'd set that night had teeth he couldn't even see yet. Lianhua I kept, but with clear eyes. She'd been the protagonist's own body servant for years, and she resented me for it, because in her mind, if not for me, she'd still be at the Gu house, maybe one day Chen Tianhai's own concubine, and instead she was odd-jobbing in a stranger's inner courtyard. So I gave Ling Yu a cold order. Watch her, and if she does anything strange, kill her, and don't bother telling me first. Ling Yu flinched. The old Wei Jiang never killed anyone, and this one talked of it like ordering tea. And I lifted her chin and asked if she was questioning me, and she said no, and meant it. Because a man who means to survive a book that ends with his whole family exterminated cannot afford one soft, sentimental, indecisive hour. A spy in the house is a knife in the mattress. I'd keep Lianhua while she was useful, and not 1 minute past it. Then I slept, after sending Xiaolia off to the side room, because only a fool sleeps with a woman who loves his rival close enough to reach the scissors. And I woke to the best news of the week. My grandfather had finally moved. In open court, the war god rose and declared Zhao Fuming, Xiaolia's father, the vice minister of revenue, whose whole family the Lin house had raised up for the sake of that marriage. Too old, too senile, and too obviously a failed father to keep his post. And the moment the Regent Prince opened the wound, the court's knives came out. The Grand Censor, the Grand Tutor, the Imperial Censor, all of them piling on, cataloging Xiao Fuming's every failure, while the ministers who used to be his friends studied the ceiling. Merongyan didn't punish him outright, because Wei Xuanyang's enemies are her natural allies, and she meant to keep Xiao Fuming alive to spite the Lin family. But it didn't matter. In this court, keeping the emperor's favor means nothing if every colleague blocks your road. The Liu family was finished, dressed up as merely reflecting on his mistakes at home. The clan I'd been forced to marry into, the clan that helps carve up my family in the book, had just lost its foothold in the government, and Chen Ziyun, watching his ally cut down and offering not one word to save him, understood he'd need new allies, fast. He also had a much more embarrassing problem at home, because the drug I'd fed his son turned out to be nearly lethal. Miao Heihuan powder, the doctor called it, potent enough to kill by rupture if the victim isn't released, and Chen Tianhai suffered through a night that cost the Gu family dearly in every currency, their servants, their silence money, and above all, their face, the one thing the highborn guard above life itself. The chancellor had to buy off grieving families, sew mouths shut with silver, and send to a pleasure house for professionals to keep his prodigy from bursting a blood vessel, an errand so degrading that a man who'd sworn to help an empress rule an empire spent the night as its manager. And I'd done it with half a paper packet of powder from a jumpy soldier's pocket. By morning, Chen Ziyun had worked out the obvious. No timid maid drugs the family heir at a dinner with the empress present. Someone was behind it. His first thought was the Regent Prince, and he dismissed it, because Wei Jiang is a soldier who'd sooner die than stoop to poison, which is exactly the blind spot that let me operate. Nobody in this court could imagine that the drunk, brainless grandson was the schemer. So Chen Ziyun hunted the wrong direction, swore to drag Lianhua's whole family to the capital and behead them one by one, and got precisely nowhere. Because Lianhua was already eating in my kitchen, and her handler was a ghost who went over walls. But then the Gu family did something the book never mentioned, something that told me I'd finally knocked the plot far enough off its rails to shake loose a secret even the author never wrote down. Because Chen Ziyun suddenly, desperately, needed to get back into that casino, not to move furniture, but to recover something. His steward reported that not one copper had come out of the casino's money shop since I took it. And the chancellor nearly leapt out of his skin and roared for his general to take troops and empty the place. Now, kill anyone who obstructed. A money shop, a cash flow the Gu family would risk open scandal, sending soldiers to rob a property the empress just awarded me to reach before I did. There was only one thing that could be: an underground bank, a private, illegal treasury buried under my new casino, the true engine of the Gu family's power, worth God knew how much. And Chen Ziyun was betting his reputation that I hadn't found it yet. He was right that I hadn't. He was about to be very wrong about whether I'd let him take it. Because his soldiers were marching on the one building in the capital I'd just decided was the most interesting thing I owned, and I was standing right in front of it. I'd come to the casino that morning to hand Guo Mei the carriage money and check on my new empire, and found her already up at dawn, sleeves rolled, arms like white lotus root, directing the repairs. A rare thing, a woman with ambition and ability both, in an age that prized a woman for having neither. I gave her the silver, reminded her of our bet, win the gambling king decree and you kill someone for me, and turned to leave, right as the street erupted. Chickens, dogs, screaming pedestrians, and a column of white-robed, white-armored soldiers marching straight for my door. The Gu family, Guo Mei breathed, is desperate. Leading them, Gao Yuan, the Gu family's own general, a nobody now, but in the book, the man Chen Tianhai eventually hands the whole army to, a genuine talent the Gu family plucked out of a rice field. Right now, an ant in my path. He clasped his hands, polite as a knife. Greetings, Your Highness. On the Chancellor's orders, I've come to retrieve his belongings. This casino is mine, General Mao, not the Chancellor's. Forgive me, I have my orders. And he waved his men at my door. So I did what a man with no army but an untouchable name does. I planted myself in the doorway and made rank do the fighting. How dare you? I am the regent's heir. Lay one finger on me and it's treason. And are you truly not afraid I'll come back with the 4 great camps and settle with every one of you, one by one? And the white-robed soldiers stopped dead, because that threat was real, and started muttering among themselves, arresting the heirs as good as arresting a prince. I've still got money to spend. I'm not dying as some lord's cannon fodder, and nobody wanted to be first through the door. Even Gao Yuan softened, caught between his orders and a suicide. Get out, I told him, smiling, before I lose my temper. This game's above your pay grade." He gritted his teeth, remembered the Chancellor had lifted him out of a farmer's life, decided he owed a debt of blood, and ordered the charge anyway. And just as the first white robe crossed my threshold, the street parted again, and in came black armor. Long spears, shields, bows, 500 strong and battle-ordered, and at their head, dragging a greatsword and swaggering like a mob boss who forgot his cigar, Chunky Lee and the Longshang Battalion. The crowd gasped, because the Longshang were the real thing, men who'd killed on the border, and the Gu family's parade ground white robes were pageantry beside them. I'd sent Dogsy running for Chunky the moment I saw trouble, and he'd brought the whole battalion, most of them killers who'd been bored in the city for weeks and itching for a fight they wouldn't have to answer for. "Little Gao!" Chunky roared, planting himself nose to nose with the general. "Heard you're making trouble at my brother's casino. What's wrong? Screw loose? Or just tired of living?" Gao Yuan, cornered and outnumbered 5-1, tried reason. "We're under the palace walls. This isn't the place." And Chunky told him exactly what he thought of reason. "This Chunky was born a villain. You wrecked my brother's place, and today you pay for it." He spat in his palm, and the Longshang drew, and it stopped being a standoff and became a slaughter. Parade soldiers against frontline veterans. Before an incense stick burned, the white robes were down, spitting blood, missing legs, some already dead. And the crowd screamed and scattered. Only Gao Yuan held, dueling Chunky's spear to blade, agile as a butterfly against Chunky's crushing strength, lasting 30 moves where most men lasted 3, enough that Chunky, blowing hard and grinning, actually offered him a job on the spot. "There's no future with old Turtle Chen. Come work for this Chunky." Gao Yuan sneered it away. "A true man is loyal unto death. I'll follow the Chancellor into the grave before I run with spoiled brats." Honest and loyal and wasted, I filed him away, because a general like that is worth stealing, and the Gu family was about to hand him to me. "Stop!" Chen Ziyan himself arrived on horseback, purple and gold robes, 10 guards, and launched into a tirade. "Chunky Lee, you loose your troops to brawl on the street. Do you respect the law, the throne?" While secretly delighted, because 2 war bands fighting in public with dead men on the cobbles was a scandal that would land, everyone knew, on the Lin family, and cost me the Empress's temper again. And then he made his mistake. He turned on his own kneeling general and demanded, loud, in front of everyone, "General Mao, I sent you to collect, not to fight. Who started it?" Meaning, transparently, lie, blame Wei Jiang, say they struck first. And he winked and glared and all but mouthed the words. But Gao Yuan, honest to the bone, couldn't read a lie even when it was drawn for him in crayon. He kept his head down and said, plain, "It was this humble general who struck first." I laughed out loud, because I'd just watched the Chancellor try to force an honest man to perjure himself to flare me, and the honest man refused, out of nothing but a soldier's inability to lie. "Chancellor Chen," I called, strolling out with Guo Mei's hand in mine, "you wanted to twist the truth and put the words in his mouth, and it never occurred to you that General Mao would find lying beneath him." Chen Ziyun went purple, leapt off his horse, and lashed his own general across the helmet with a riding whip. "Raise your head. I'll ask once more. Who struck first?" And the whip on the helmet half deafened the man, blood running from his ears, and still, dazed and bleeding, Gao Yuan would not change his answer. And I stood there beaming, because this is what it means to catch a chicken and lose the rice. Chen Ziyun had come to rob me and frame me, and instead had exposed himself as a man who beats his own loyal general bloody for refusing to lie, in front of the whole street, and handed me, gift-wrapped, the sure knowledge that a general worth a marquis's title could never truly belong to a master like that. "Old Gu," I called, cheerful. "You're a true friend." He blinked, baffled, and then I turned and said it loud enough for the whole street, to Chunky. "Go tell the prefect of the capital that today, Military Commissioner He Jian led his men in a pitched street battle against the Gu family's soldiers, dead and wounded everywhere, the people terrified, and have him deal with it accordingly." And, out of the crowd, a man I'd just named for a massacre he'd only been watching nearly fainted where he stood. He Jian, Military Commissioner, and, in the book, the single most important name on my list. Because Wei Jiang is the parasite lord whose entire family lives off the Lin house's charity, and who repays it, the day my grandfather dies, by being the first to lead troops into the Lin mansion, seize me, and hand me to Chen Tianhai to be made into a human pig. He is the traitor from the very first page of my memories, the mole inside my own gates. I'd been meaning to get to him. And here he was, delivered to me in a panic, having just been publicly assigned the blame for a street full of corpses. He came out of the crowd in a sliding kneel like a footballer. "Your Highness, spare me. I've been loyal. I've done nothing wrong." "Oh? I never said you did anything wrong. So why are you begging?" And I watched the guilt eat him alive, watched him wonder if I knew Chen Ziyun had secretly bribed him, and gave him my owl's laugh. "Don't worry. I'll have the prefect grant you every pleasure before you die." He wet himself, crawled to Chunky's feet. "This Chunky, I've done so much for you. Beg him for me." And Chunky's mouth opened, and I froze him with a look and one word. "Shut up." Because I hated Wei Jiang more than I hated Chen Tianhai. Chen Tianhai was at least an honest enemy. Wei Jiang was the smiling thing at my own table that would slit my family's throat the second the war god fell. And now, terrified I'd discovered his bribe, he bolted to Chen Ziyun. "Chancellor, save me! I'll give back the silver!" And the Chancellor, who'd bought him only days before, looked at the drowning man and said the truest thing the Gu family ever managed. "Get lost. I don't know you." 2 days. I'd stripped the protagonist of his assassin, his spy master, his mistress, his casino, his dinner alliance, and his favor. I'd gutted the Liu family, exposed the Gu family's cruelty, and turned their own general into a monument against them. And now the traitor who was fated to end me had just been abandoned by his paymaster in the open street, staring at a death sentence I'd invented on the spot, while somewhere under my new casino sat an underground bank full of the Gu family's secret fortune that even the author never knew about. Not bad for a doomed side villain with 3 months to live, and I was only getting started. Chunky hauled Wei Jiang off by the hair, kicking off his helmet, swearing that a man who'd collude with the Gu family to murder his brother would get house-cleaned personally, and the traitor's screams faded down the street, and I let out a long, stale breath. The mole who turns me into a human pig is finally gone. Then it was off to the palace, because Chen Ziyun insisted we let the Empress judge the street battle, certain the whole city had witnessed my soldier's atrocity as indisputable fact. He wasn't wrong about the corpses. He was wrong about who'd hang for them. Because when he laid his accusation before the throne, the Lin Brat's troops slaughtered 100 of my men and terrified the city. And Murong Yan turned to me for my defense. I said 4 words that stopped the whole room. "I have nothing to say." Everyone froze, because the mouthy Wei Jiang going silent is more alarming than the mouthy Wei Jiang talking. And when the Empress pressed, I turned it into a blade. "Your Majesty is heaven ordained. You decide guilt with a word, and right and wrong hardly matter. Why not just imprison me and pick a day for the execution?" She snapped that I wouldn't goad her with retreat to advance, and walk straight into it, because now she had to hear me out to prove she wasn't blindly shielding the guilty. So I laid the facts down like paving stones. Yesterday she decreed the Gu family compensate me the casino. Today, Chen Ziyun brought armed troops to that very casino, witnessed by the whole city, reported by her own 100 cavalry spies. The military command, nominally under Commissioner Wei Jiang, responded to the disturbance and was attacked first, by Chen Ziyun's general, Gao Yuan, who'd confessed as much with his own mouth. "So how," I asked, spreading my hands, "is it I who led troops to terrorize the city?" Chen Ziyun sputtered that Gao Yuan came to move furniture, not fight, and that the man who brought the military command was Chunky Li, not Wei Jiang. Both true, and both useless, because Wei Jiang was the nominal commander of record, and Chunky merely his captain, and a fact on paper beats a fact everyone knows. And I drove the spear all the way through. Does the Chancellor's house lack servants? Is there no laborer in the whole city? Since when do you send 100 armed soldiers to move furniture, unless it was never furniture at all? He stood there like a man who'd swallowed a fly mid-yawn, unable to spit it out, blood pressure climbing, while I asked why armed men had assaulted the military command, the throne's own authority, if not as an act of treason. Murong Yen, who'd privately resolved that whatever happened, she would not punish the Gu family, was cornered by her own logic, and did what emperors do when the truth is inconvenient. She split the difference and made everyone bleed a little. She docked my salary for a year, a real wound. The Lin family lives on that pittance. She stripped Gao Yuan of rank and cast him down to commoner, and she ordered He Jian's entire family executed for inciting the disturbance, which, from where I stood, was 3 gifts wrapped as a punishment, because the demoted, humiliated, honest general Gao Yuan was now a free man, no longer bound to a master who'd whipped him bloody for refusing to lie, a talent I could reach for. And He Jian, the parasite fated to lead troops into my home and hand me to the butcher, was wiped off the board, root and branch, by the Empress's own hand, for a crime I'd invented on a street corner an hour before. The author had written that man to end me. I'd gotten the Empress to end him instead, and never left a fingerprint. There was one string attached I didn't like. She also ordered me to open the casino and let the Gu family retrieve their belongings, which told me she'd smelled the same secret Qin Ziyun was sweating over, that there was something under that casino worth a war. And here's where I did the thing that made Qin Ziyun's stomach drop into his boots. I bowed and said, "I obey." Instantly, no argument, from the man who just fought a 500-soldier street battle rather than let one white robe cross his threshold. Chen Ziyun's face went white, because agreement from me was scarier than defiance. There's a problem. There's definitely a problem. And even Murong Yen leaned in, suspicious, and warned me about the penalty for deceiving the throne. I'd never dare. My people withdraw from the casino at noon tomorrow. The Chancellor is welcome to come and move whatever he likes then. Noon tomorrow, which gave me 1 night. Chen Ziyun left, pointing 2 fingers at his own eyes, and then at me. "I'm watching you." And I smiled and nodded, because he could watch all he liked. He still didn't know what I was about to find. But I wasn't done in that hall, because I'd come for a decree, and I meant to leave with one. "Your Majesty, one more thing. I'd like to do business with you." The Empress nearly fell off her throne, because the Lin family famously despises trade. My grandfather would sooner starve with bells on his backside than earn a merchant's copper. But I dangled the hook where it would sink deepest. You put up nothing. You write 1 edict, and you earn 10,000 taels a month, not tax, not the treasury, your private purse. And that landed square on her softest spot, because Murong Yan was flat broke. A dynasty with no industry, salaries for her eunuchs, and her secret 100 cavalry spy. Core, all bleeding out of a bare treasury, and she needed money to build her own power, badly enough to be, in her word, obsessed with it. "You're not asking me to sell offices," she said warily. "Nothing that harms the country. Simple, profitable, risk-free." And I named it. An imperial edict proclaiming that my casino would hold a tournament, and the winner would be titled, by the throne, Gambling King. The whole hall gasped like I'd suggested crowning a pig. "What do you take my empire for?" the Empress cried. "A title handed to a gambler?" But I'd loaded the answer. It's not a peerage, no land, no power, an empty word, like the Sea Kings and Blade Kings the martial world crowns themselves. The only difference is the throne grants this one, prestige for them, and 10,000 taels a month for the royal purse, which I suspect is worth rather more to your Majesty right now than the confiscated Gu treasure, given how many holes the palace has to fill. It hit exactly where I'd aimed, because those 300,000 taels the Gu family surrendered had already lost 50,000 to back pay for her servants, and the rest wouldn't fund her spy network 2 years. 10,000 a month, 120,000 a year would run the 100 cavalry division and leave change. She wavered, torn between the mockery of foreign courts and the money she desperately needed, and I tipped her over with the oldest line in the book. "Fortune favors the bold, your Majesty. What is a little ridicule against 10,000 taels a month?" And then the Empress showed me she was not the naive, love-struck girl the book had promised, and we fell into a haggle I enjoyed more than any fight. She narrowed her eyes. "From your confidence, this casino clearly earns more than 10,000 a month. No, I want 50%. I actually blinked. When did this woman get sharp? Because in the book, Murong Yan was a naive, love-drunk innocent, and this one had just tried to skin me on a deal she'd only heard 60 seconds ago. I waved both hands, all reasonable. No, Your Majesty, surely we can discuss this. We cannot. Flat as a wall. She was certain, absolutely certain, my real take topped 10,000, and she meant to have half. So, I played the one card that beats a greedy negotiator every time. I quit. A long, wounded sigh. Well, if that's how it is, never mind. I'll go home and close the casino. And I turned and walked for the door. The Empress had said 50 only to leave herself room to bargain down. She'd fully expected me to counter, to plead, to meet her at 30. She had not expected 10,000 taels a month to simply stand up and stroll toward the exit. And I heard the exact sound of a broke ruler watching free money leave the room. Stop! She was on her feet. I let my own foot catch, a beautiful little stumble, and turned my head just enough. Your Majesty, 10,000 is already my limit. Oscar-worthy. She held up 2 trembling fingers. A flat 20,000. 10,000. Not one tael more. You... She couldn't get the rest out. And I stood there, despising her a little, because she wanted the 10,000 taels, and she wanted not to write the decree. And you cannot have every good thing in the world. That's the one lesson even an emperor has to learn. Finally, Murong Yan sagged back onto the dragon throne like a punctured wineskin and muttered, without lifting her head, 10,000 a month. I agree. Splendid! Your Majesty's word is law! Ink, at once, if you please. She grounded herself, wrote the decree in a flowing, furious hand, and her eunuch, Zhaolei, clever, useful, a man I'd made a point of being warm to, carried it to me on both palms. I bowed out with the single most valuable sheet of paper in the dynasty folded into my sleeve, and did not open it. And she did not dare tamper with it, because we both knew the other would remember. Here's the joke, though, the joke that was on them. The moment I left, Murong Yan's maid, Fanhua, pointed out the obvious. The casino had paid the Gu family only 700 or 800 taels a month in tax, even run by the brilliant Gu father and son. So how could a brainless spendthrift like me possibly deliver 10,000? Conclusion? I couldn't. I was deceiving the emperor, and when I inevitably failed to pay, they'd have me dead to rights on a capital charge that not even my grandfather could argue down. The Empress lit up, certain she'd caught me in my own trap. She had no idea I was holding a secret about her own casino that she'd just legally signed over half control of the marketing to. 2 people walked out of that hall, each convinced they'd conned the other. Only one of us was right. Over at the Gu residence, the gloating was already in full swing. Chen Ziyun swept home delighted. No punishment for the brawl, and permission to march into the casino tomorrow and haul out the treasure right in front of me. And found his son in the garden, recovering, hollow-eyed but venomous. The Chancellor recounted the day, and even Chen Tianhai tensed at the tale of the palace standoff, because a spoiled illiterate does not out-argue a room of ministers, and the protagonist finally understood, too late, that the drunk he dismissed had become his single most dangerous enemy. When did this brat get so capable? But Chen Ziyun waved it off, laughing. Tomorrow they'd carry off the treasure while I wept, because the Lin family was a pauper, and this was the Gu family's true fortune. And Chen Tianhai rose, eyes gone cold and sinister. Fine. Wei Jiang, let's start this gamble over, beginning at the casino. Neither of them stopped to wonder why the boy who'd fought a war to keep them out had suddenly, cheerfully, invited them in. And I? I was already flying back to the casino, Imperial Decree crushed in my fist, more anxious than any of them, because the great secret Guo Mei had promised to tell me, the thing Chen Ziyun would brawl in the street and defy the whole city to recover, the thing the author never even wrote into the book, was waiting under my new casino floor. The Gu family came at noon tomorrow. I had one night to find it, understand it, and empty it. And I burst through the doors to find Guo Mei at a gambling table, haggling with a crowd of ragged carpenters, about to hand me the key to everything. She'd already closed my carriage order, 300 coaches, spacious and grand, from a dozen half-starved carpenters who wept and swore she was their living bodhisattva, because in a dead economy, a job this size fed their families for years. Good. I sealed the doors, cleared the servants, and tossed Guo Mei the imperial decree. She read it, the throne, in the Empress's own flowing hand, proclaiming a gambling king tournament, and went dizzy. Because a ruler openly blessing gambling was, in her words, against all moral order, the kind of thing that gets a dynasty laughed at by 7 kingdoms. But it was also, she admitted, an absolute guarantee. With that decree, the casino would drown in customers, and 100,000 taels in 3 months went from impossible to easy. And rename it, I told her. Yuanda is dead. It's the Hero Casino now. Heroes only come from a Hero Casino. New signboard, open fast. And you lost our bet, so the secret. She didn't flinch. Underground bank. And she led me into the depths of my own casino and showed me the thing that runs the Gu family's whole world. The casino's real profit was never dice, it was lending. But no gambling house keeps that much coin on its books, so the Gu family dug a vault beneath it, packed it with a generation of embezzled and bribed silver, and cycled it out as loans and back as clean repayment, money laundering, and a war chest in one buried room. She pressed the edge of an oil-painted pine, a frame swung loose, a whole wall slid silent aside. And I, a man with a modern man's memories, stood there genuinely stunned that the seemingly ordinary storeroom hid an engineering feat. Ancient corrupt officials, it turns out, were thorough. If you knew this was here, I asked, why did the Gu family let me carry you off? She turned and smiled like a spring flower with a knife in it. Because they have no idea I know. She'd followed the Gu steward on his nightly audits, watched the lending vault fatten, gotten curious, and found this, and never breathed a word. Or do you think I'd still be alive? Then she lit the candles, and the dark filled with light, and I saw it. A mountain of silver. 5 tael ingots white as fresh snow, stacked floor to ceiling, a wall built out of money, the kind of thing I'd only ever seen in an anti-corruption documentary and never believed was real. Roughly, Guomei said, 2,600,000 taels of silver, 150,000 in gold. The jade and jewels I haven't even counted. 130 tons of silver, 7.5 tons of gold. The true engine of Chen Qianhai's entire legend, because in the book, this is where his fortune comes from. The seized assets of corrupt Lin faction officials he keeps gifting the Empress to buy her devotion. The author bragged endlessly about how rich the Gu family was, and never once wrote this down. And I stood in front of a wall of silver tall enough to make an army forget hunger for 2 years, and thought, and now it's mine. I genuinely just pooled 500 taels with Chunky to start a carriage company. Standing here, that felt like a joke. Chen Qianhai, I said to the silver, you dared to make me a human pig. I dare to use your own money to disgust you to death. But the Gu family came at noon, and there was no hiding that this much treasure had come out of the casino. Their informants would see it move. Guomei solved it in one stroke of genius. The Xinglin pharmacy shared a wall with the casino's back courtyard. Buy it, knock a hole through the wall, run the treasure out through the pharmacy's yard where no one's watching, then rebuild the wall, and the vault the Gu family opens at noon tomorrow will simply be empty, with no earthly explanation for where it went. You, I said, are a genius. And I grabbed her waist and spun her clean off the floor before I caught myself, and set her down to find her scarlet and speechless, fleeing to take care of something. Because in this rigid age, a man doesn't seize a woman's waist without vows and promises, and I'd just cheerfully done it and walked off like nothing happened. She hated it. She also, somewhere under the hate, didn't. A woman's drawn to strength, and I'd just watered her heart like a flood field, without either of us quite noticing. And here's where the story showed me who my grandfather really was. Guomei took a bag of gold to the pharmacy to buy the yard, and the owner, old immortal Gao, a famous bone setter who'd once treated the late emperor's own neck, refused the fortune and sold it for a token 5 taels of gold. Why? Who in all great Qin doesn't know His Highness the Regent is good to the people? That even when he himself goes hungry, he sees the disaster victims get a bowl of hot porridge? For a gentleman so benevolent, this old man is duty-bound to help. That's why the Lin family is broke, and why the court hates them, and why I have to save them. My grandfather is the one honest man in a den of thieves, a war god who'd starve with bells on his backside before he'd earn a merchant's dirty copper. And the ministers loathe him for it, because standing near an honest man just means going hungry with no reward. The powerful smear the Lin family. But the people, the carpenters, the bone setters, the commoners, love them. And that love, I'd already worked out, is the only wall the Empress can never breach. A war god the people adore is a war god she can hate forever and never touch. To move the treasure clean, I needed soldiers who couldn't leak, so I went home and pried the Tiger Guard tally out of my grandfather, or rather, failed to. He'd sooner die than hand military power to a grandson who was a drunk last week. Fair. And instead, got him to ride out to camp and muster the battalion himself. The Tiger Guard. His most trusted 500, no new recruit in 5 years, a single monolithic block of loyalty with no seam for a spy to slip through. And, in the book, the men who die 3 months from now propping up his collapsing front line. I deliberately kept the treasure secret, even from grandfather, because the moment he learned of 2.5 million taels, he'd hand every copper to the soldiers on the spot, noble and useless, because loyalty bought with money isn't loyalty, and I had far better uses for that silver than making it disappear into back pay. On the ride back, I recruited the battalion's blunt Liaoning captain, Xu Bin, as my personal guard at 5 taels a month, a wage that nearly knocked the man off his horse, and when he swore eternal loyalty to the 4 great camps, and the Crown Prince too, I laughed, because an honest soldier's clumsy oath is worth 10 smooth ones. "What are we moving, Your Highness?" he asked. "Money," I said, and rode for the casino. But Chen Tianhai had gotten there first, because the protagonist's famous intuition was screaming that something was wrong at the casino, and against his father's warning, he'd galloped over to shake the truth out of Guo Mei. And what happened next is the scene that finally tore the hero's mask off in front of everyone who mattered. He demanded Guo Mei name her punishment for betraying the Gu family, and she gave him the truth. "When Wei Jiang carried me off, did the Gu family lift one finger to save me? No. You abandoned me first. I only found a better tree." And the refined, elegant, universally adored Chen Tianhai answered a defenseless woman with his fist, slapped her to the floor. And when her 2 young servants, Da and Little threw themselves in front of her and dared to say a great young master ought to be ashamed to beat a woman, he kicked Da's face into a fountain of blood, knocked Little senseless, and gave Guo Mei a monster's choice: spy on me, or kill herself to atone. This is the man the author crowned the hero. And kneeling there bleeding, shielding her servants with her own body, Guo Mei saw him clearly for the first time. Not the gentle scholar who'd smiled at her across the gambling floor, but a spineless brute who used rank to beat the powerless, and understood exactly what she'd escaped, and exactly whose side she was truly on now. Then the doors blew open, and I came through them with Xu Bin and a wall of black-armored tiger guards, and Guo Mei looked up at me like I was the finest thing she'd ever seen and sobbed my name, and I saw her bruised, her servants bloodied, Chen Tianhai standing over them with that ferocious face, and something in me snapped clean through. "You dare hit my people?" I tore the long knife off Xu Bin's belt and went straight at him. The great Chen Tianhai shrieked and fled around the gambling table. "Wei Jiang, put it down. The Gu family will fight you to the death." And when I couldn't catch him, I split the table in half with one stroke and stood in the wreckage like a death god and raised the blade over his skull and brought it down. And an arrow came out of nowhere and struck my blade and tore it from my hands. Jasmine. The assassin I'd pulled out of that alley and never asked a thing of, perched by the window, come out of nowhere, and she hadn't shot to save Chen Tianhai. She'd shot to save me from the mistake of killing him. Because a dead Chen Tianhai means the whole Gu faction's total war on a Lin family that can't yet win it, means my grandfather crippled and my clan back on the road to that mass grave, and some cooler part of me knew it, even as the red drained away. The assassin I'd shown one kindness had just repaid it by stopping me from ending myself. Protagonist halo? No. Just a debt, honestly paid. The thing this whole cruel court had forgotten was even possible. So I let the rage go, and did the crueler thing. I had the tiger guards grab the trembling, pants-wetted young master of the Gu family by all 4 limbs, hoist it up like a pig for slaughter, and pitch him out the door into the dirt. He scrambled up soaked and shaking, screaming the line the author wrote for his triumph. "Wei Jiang, from this day it's war to the death. I'll turn you into a human swine and leave you on the bank of the Yellow River as a toad." The exact fate that waited for me in the book, snarled by the exact man. And I called back, bored, from inside my casino. "Change your pants first." He coughed up a mouthful of blood and staggered away, and I turned and gently wiped the dirt from Guo Mei's bruised face and told her the truth of it. Chen Tianhai was a heartless madman who'd bloodied a servant and dared to hurt her, and that was a debt that would never be squared. I sent Ada and little off to the clinic with a silver coin apiece. How do you see a doctor with no money? And the two servants wept with gratitude, because in this world, a great lord who hands a beaten servant coin instead of a boot is a thing they'd never seen. And then, in front of the whole grinning tiger guard, I tipped up Guo Mei's chin and wiped the last of the dirt off her face myself, and told her not to leave, and that no one alive dares criticize what Wei Jiang chooses to do. And Xu Bin bellowed that sister-in-law was a peerless beauty, and 500 soldiers howled about when the wedding banquet was, and Guo Mei fled scarlet, her old cool composure in ruins. She'd hated the man in the rumors. She was in a great deal of trouble over the man in front of her. But I still had one debt to settle before I could enjoy any of it, because a stranger had put an arrow through my blade to save my life, and I had to know why. I went to Jasmine's courtyard with Xu Bin at my back and murder in my face, ready to kill her on the spot if she turned out to be tangled up with Chen Tianhai. She didn't turn around. "I did it," she said to her bowstring before I'd asked. "What's your relationship with Chen Tianhai?" "None at all." And I breathed again, because that answer was the only thing keeping her alive. "Then why?" "You saved my life, so I save yours." "You shot my blade. You saved Chen Tianhai." "Chen Tianhai can't die yet, and you were only acting on impulse. You didn't truly want to kill him." I stared at her, because the book had promised me a naive, love-struck girl who fell for the protagonist because he rescued her, and here instead was a cold-eyed assassin with a mind sharp enough to read the whole political board and know, better than I had in that red moment, that a dead Chen Tianhai meant the Gu faction's total war on a Lin family that couldn't yet win it. My grandfather crippled, my clan back on the road to the grave. That damned author had lied to me again. There aren't that many love-struck fools in the world. This one was a genuine chivalrous soul, free as wind, who'd known I meant to keep her by force and simply, calmly refused. "We're even. Where I go is none of your business. Call off your guards, and next time you want me dead, don't bother saving me first." I'd meant to hook her with a hero rescues the maiden trick and chain her to my war. Some people are born unchainable. So I did the only honest thing left and called after her. "Jasmine, thank you." She paused, and for the first time the ice broke into a real, stunning smile, and she looked up at the sky and was gone. As long as I'm alive, I'll see her again. Some allies you don't buy or trap, you just earn the right to meet them twice. I sat on that stone bench until dark, and it was Ling Yu who finally came to feed me, a bowl of noodles, egg sauce, diced radish, and wiped the corner of my mouth and gave me the one piece of pure good news in 2 days of knives. Yun Fing's mother had been buried, properly, beside his father. Dogsy and Duanjing and half the Longsheng battalion had come to see her off, the paper money heaped up like a little mountain. And his sister had been bought out of bondage, and the 2 siblings were home at last, whole, waiting to serve. I looked at Ling Yu, 15, radiant, loyal to the bone, the one soul in this whole rotten mansion who loved me for nothing and wanted to marry her on the spot, and didn't, because she's a child, and I'm a modern man, and that line I do not cross. But I'd done one clean, decent thing in a story built on cruelty. I'd taken a soldier who couldn't bury his own mother and given him back his family. In a court where every kindness is a calculation, that one wasn't. And it bought me a loyalty that no amount of the Gu family silver could ever purchase. Then Ling Yu told me where Xiaolia's father had spent the day, and I laughed, because the war god's single sentence in court that morning had detonated slower and wider than even I'd hoped. My grandfather had called Xiao Fuming unfit in open session, and by nightfall, the man was a leper. Every colleague who'd fawned on him a week ago now crossed the street to avoid him. The Gu family, his own ally, wouldn't even receive him, and the Lin loyal minister of war had quietly transferred both of Xiao Fuming's sons to frozen frontier posts on the edge of savage territory where the wars never stop, ruining the promising eldest, and very possibly killing the second before spring. And a general had ridden over to annul the youngest daughter's engagement, blowing up the marriage alliance that was supposed to make Xiao Fuming prime minister in 10 years. In a single day, the whole clan the Lin family had force-grown for the sake of one marriage collapsed back into the nothing it had been. Because that's the lesson Xiao Fuming never learned. He had no resources, no background, no power that didn't flow from Wei Jiang. He'd mistaken borrowed light for his own, and the moment he betrayed the house that lit him, the dark came rushing back. He spent the evening weeping with his weeping daughter and pinned his family's last desperate hope on the one asset he had left, Xiaolia, and her orders to be sweet, be obedient, win the monster of a husband back, and never, ever see Chen Tianhai again, or the Liu family is finished for good. And somewhere under her tears, the spy felt an ache she couldn't name, and thought of the protagonist she'd wronged, and did not yet understand that she was now just another tool on a board where I moved all the pieces. And I walked toward her rooms to watch the father and daughter perform their little play, because a man should always know what his sharpest knife is being told to do. 2 days. That's all it had been since I woke in a doomed man's body at his own cuckolded wedding with 3 months to live. In 48 hours, I'd stripped the protagonist of his assassin, his spy master, his mistress, his casino, his dinner alliance, his imperial favor, and his last shred of dignity. Wiped out the traitor fated to make me a human pig, collapsed the Liu clan and exposed the Gu, talked an empress out of a killing decree and into a money-printing one, earned the loyalty of a demoted general, a rescued soldier, a captured spy master, and a free-flying assassin. And found, buried under my own floor, a wall of silver the author never knew existed, about to vanish through a hole in a pharmacy wall before the Gu family carried off a single coin. The author handed Chen Tianhai a destiny, the throne, the harem, the world, and my corpse for a footstool. I'd spent 1 weekend taking it apart and pouring it into my own hands. 3 months still stood between me and the invasion that kills. My grandfather, and ends my clan. But I had the silver now. I had the men. I had every piece of the protagonist's stolen luck. And I had the one advantage no one in this whole scheming court could ever take from me. I'd already read the ending, and I had no intention of letting it stand. Let Chen Tianhai go home, change his pants, and swear his revenge to an empty room. The doomed side villain had a wall of silver to move before noon, a spy to run, a general to steal, and a war god to drag off the battlefield fate had picked for him. And then, in this era, I was going to become king of it all. This was only the beginning.